Welcome in, everybody. It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I am David Wilson, repping the A here in Nashville on a beautiful Wednesday. Well, it's turned beautiful. It was a little rainy earlier today in Nashville. That's my buddy Calvin White, repping the A, different colored hat, up in Clarksville from his respective home. Calvin, meteorologist report up in Montgomery County. How's it looking up there? And then how are you doing on this Wednesday?
I'm doing good. It's been rainy over the last couple of days, but we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. It's rain that much of the mid state is desperately needed for a while. So we've got enough
Yes.
to turn the grass back to the right color. But now I think everybody would be okay if it went away again for a while.
And I'm looking out the window, and the grass does look so much better. We had some rain last night that hit here in the mid state in Nashville. Got rained on a little bit last night while I was at in Mount Juliet at Green Hill, where the Hawks took on the Beach Bucks in their District 12 AAA, so AAA finale at home. So got some soccer action. And Calvin, not to tell on myself, but I texted Blaine, our coworker, and I said it's a good day when David goes out to just to cover some soccer. That is David's weakness. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that.
Yeah, I'm right there in the same boat with you. I'm sure that with district and region tournaments and all those things getting started over the next 2 weeks, we'll be forced to go out and ramp up our soccer coverage along with volleyball.
That we will, and I'm glad you mentioned volleyball as well. District tournaments are steadily approaching as we are full steam ahead to the first week of October. Crazy to think that those state tournaments are just a couple of weeks away. Got a good show for you today, though, on Wednesday, our favorite day. It's Wild and Wacky Wednesday. In the second hour, with the Ryder Cup on the verge here in a couple days at Beth Page Black up in New York. Friend of the show, Virgil Herring, is going to join us to preview the Ryder Cup. Is this the year for Team USA to reclaim the cup? I know Calvin, that is a storyline that is steadily on his mind with U.S. Captain Keegan Bradley looking to lead them to victory. Coming up here in this our next segment, it's our weekly visit with Heather Williams as we discussed a little NASCAR and ETSU on Calvin's behalf. NASCAR Cup Series kicked off the round of 12 this past weekend in New Hampshire Motor Speedway at the Magic Mile. And it was Penske driver Ryan Blaney capturing the checkered flag and punching his ticket to the round of 8. It was a dominant day for Penske as they finished 1-2 with co-affiliated car and Hendersonville native Josh Berry finishing second in the Wood Brothers machine that comes out of the same shop as the captain Joey Logano sat on the pole. So a good weekend for the Blue Ovals and Ford up in New Hampshire. We'll preview the week ahead as the NASCAR Cup Series heads to the Midwest, takes on Kansas Speedway, which has notoriously been dominated by Toyotas. We'll get Heather's opinion on that. Talk a little baseball here at the end of this hour. The Braves carried a 10-game winning streak into today's play. Um, we'll see. They just should have wrapped up their series with the Nationals. Last time I checked, they were down 3-0 after a James Wood solo home run. We'll see. Seems like they lost 4-3. So the Braves tried to make a comeback. So winning streak
That's it.
over. But they are playing better baseball as we reach the final week of the regular season for those guys. We'll talk a little news and notes across Major League Baseball with some clinching scenarios in play tonight. So stay tuned for that here at the bottom of the hour. We'll also talk a little football, NFL, WNBA playoffs in the grab bags. We enter that 3 o'clock hour. So should be a great show for you guys on deck. Calvin, let's dive right into it with yesterday's results and today's schedule. On the rundown,
This is the Rundown.
night scores across the volleyball action in the TSSAA. This was a district match that Battle Creek sweeps Giles County 3-0. It was Blackman defeating Riverdale in straight sets as well in district action. Got a short final here. I guess this was tournament play with Siegel 2, Cleveland nothing. Also in volleyball, it was Columbia picking up a 3-0 sweep over Calfee County in district play. In Division II Single A, it was Franklin Christian picking up the sweep in straight sets over Columbia Academy. It was Community edging Spring Hill in 5 sets 3-2. In District 12 AAA, it was Gallatin getting the sweep over Portland 3-0. In Single A, it was Summertown picking up a straight set win over rival Loretto. Murfreesboro Central Magnet had the sweep over Cascade in district play. In Division II Single A, it was BGA edging past Providence Christian Academy in 5 sets 3-2. Also, district play, it was Oakland picking up a sweep over Rockville. Siegel, also in tournament play, I assume, 2-0 victors over East Hamilton. It was Warren County picking up a district win over Smyrna 3-2 in District 7 3A. Also in District 7 3A, it was Lebanon picking up a straight set sweep at home against Stewart's Creek 3-0. It was White County also in District 7 3A, picking up a sweep over Laverne 3-0. And in Division 2 Single A, it was Middle Tennessee Christian, straight set victory over Zion Christian.
In girls soccer, Father Ryan wins 3-2 over CPA. Clarksville wins 4-0 over Christian County from Kentucky. Columbia shuts out Spring Hill 1-0. Franklin Road Academy wins 2-0 over Columbia Academy. East Robertson falls 1-0 to Waverly. DCA wins 9-0 over Ezel Harding. Fairview wins 9-0 over Montgomery Central. Friendship Christian falls 3-1 to Davidson Academy. Gallatin shuts out Portland 5-0. University School of Nashville wins 5-2 over Goodpasture. Beach sneaks past Green Hill 2-1. Kirkwood wins 5-0 over Trigg County from Kentucky. Lebanon wins 6-1 over Laverne. Lawrence County falls 2-0 to Cornersville. Lipscomb Academy 2, Innsworth 1. Macon County 4-1 over White House Heritage. Murfreesboro Central Magnet 14-0 winners over Marshall County. Hillsboro wins 5-1 over McGavick. Page 10-2 winners over Centennial. Providence Christian wins 9-0 over Middle Tennessee Christian. Franklin and Ravenwood draw at 2 apiece. Rockvale wins 2-0 over Riverdale. Siegel 1-0 winners over Blackman. Stewart's Creek 9-0 winners over Smyrna. Nolansville falls 4-1 to Summit. Sycamore wins 1-0 over Creekwood. West Creek beats Kenwood 3-0. Station Camp beats White House 11-2. Wilson Central 2-1 over Cookville. Giles County wins 1-0 over Zion Christian.
Last night in Major League Baseball, it was the Atlanta Braves picking up a 3-2 win over the Washington Nationals. Michael Harris II with 2 home runs in that game, and Ronald Acuna with a solo shot as well. It was Wade's Astros falling to the Athletics in Sacramento last night, 5-1. The Astros now lost 4 straight and are reeling not only in the AL West standings, but the AL wildcard standings as well. In the W last night, WNBA playoffs, game 2 for both of these respective matchups, and both winners even their respective series. It was the Phoenix Mercury coming back from a 20-point deficit to defeat the Minnesota Lynx 89-83. And then Las Vegas, it was the Las Vegas Aces picking up a 90-68 win over the Indiana Fever.
Looking at tonight's high school volleyball schedule, not a huge schedule, but 3 games nonetheless. Spring Hill is at Franklin Christian at 5 p.m. Eagleville is at Oakland, and Wilson Central is at Siegel. Both of those games are at 6 p.m. Girls soccer, Martin Luther King is at Hillsboro at 6:30. In Major League Baseball, the Nationals and the Braves played the series finale of their series today. The Nationals win 4-3 over the Braves, and the Astros are still out in Las Vegas tonight. They are playing the Athletics. Sacramento. That wrong city. I get
You're
confused.
getting ahead of yourself.
Get confused with those athletic cities. But first pitch for that game is at 9:05 tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, those were your scores. That was your schedule, and that concludes today's rundown.
They've already broken ground on their new stadium in Las Vegas, so it's only a matter of time before we get there. Our top story is brought to you by the good folks at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. They serve lunch daily from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. They also offer hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill. Presenting you our top story today, and this is obviously a topic, I'll say, that has been on the front of SEC football fans' minds after it was announced that the SEC was going to transition to a 9-game conference schedule beginning next year in 2026. We saw a couple days ago, according to ESPN's Chris Lowe, that the permanent opponents, the yearly opponents, which will be 3 opponents for each team, was announced. For Vanderbilt, that is the University of Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Auburn. Those are Vanderbilt's 3 permanent opponents. For Tennessee, it is Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. But last night, the SEC went ahead and revealed its opponents, its conference opponents for each team for the whole entire schedule, conference schedule, from 2026 to 2029. And diving into that right now, we'll start local. And then we'll transition out east to the eastern part of the state. Hopefully my computer will load as I scroll down to look for the aforementioned Vanderbilt Commodores. And next year, Vanderbilt, as the computer continues to load. Calvin, you want to help me out if you got it loaded up? Mine is being slow for Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Well, I had it pulled up, and then the thing.
I see it
glitched.
now.
Okay. Yeah, you scroll.
I got it now, Calvin. I say the internet was working slow. I got you, Calvin. In 2026, the struggling opponents.
Words are hard.
Vanderbilt will get Tennessee at home. They will travel to Auburn and to Mississippi State next year in 2026. Home matchups that are not permanent opponents. They will have Alabama at home, Arkansas at home, Ole Miss at home, then at Florida, at Georgia, and at Kentucky. Scrolling up really quickly to the University of Tennessee before we discuss opponents. Home game next year versus Alabama. Home game versus Kentucky. At Vanderbilt for permanent opponents. Home contests, Auburn, LSU, and Texas should be some good matchups right there. Then road contests at South Carolina, at Arkansas, and at Texas A&M. So my first thought about this, Calvin, as we discuss really quickly, think about the teams that are on Vanderbilt's schedule this year and last year. This year they play at Texas, at Alabama, home versus LSU. They also play Tennessee, Auburn, Missouri, and Kentucky. I'm looking at their schedule for next year with Tennessee and Auburn. So you keep those 2. You add Mississippi State. You lose Mizzou. You keep Alabama, you gain Arkansas, you gain Ole Miss, you gain Florida, you gain Georgia, and gain Kentucky, or you keep Kentucky, excuse me. And Calvin, it just feels this way when I discuss the SEC schedule. It feels like it's a murderer's row, no matter whose schedule you look at.
Yeah, there's no easy schedule in the SEC for anybody, but looking at Vanderbilt's schedule for next year, road trips to Auburn, Florida, and Georgia, I'm not sure anybody has ever had to do that all in one year. And, it's tough enough playing those guys at home. And now you're going to have to go on the road and play them. And then you're going to get Tennessee at home. Tennessee's been tough the last couple of years, whether they're playing in Neyland Stadium or playing on the road. Home games against Alabama, Arkansas, and Ole Miss should make those a little bit easier. But, if Alabama and Ole Miss are as good as they usually are, then those are going to be tough games as well. Arkansas has been down the last couple of years, but it's a tough schedule no matter who plays who in the SEC.
Knock on some wood as they play my Notre Dame Fighting Irish this weekend in Fayetteville, and Notre Dame desperately needing a win to hopefully build its case to somehow make the college football playoff. Looking at the Tennessee Volunteers schedule, I think their schedule is more daunting next year. Obviously, I feel like and forgive me, those of you who are fans of the Big Orange, the SEC schedule is a little light for those guys the last couple of years. Obviously, they keep rivalries, and they have home matchups next year with Alabama and Kentucky. They also have home matchups with Auburn, LSU, and Texas. Road contests at Vanderbilt, out South Carolina, at Arkansas, and at Texas A&M. So even then, looking at Tennessee's 2026 schedule, you get your quality, good, top 5, top 10 programs at home at Neyland Stadium, which is always an advantage for Tennessee. Like I said, Alabama at home, Texas at home, LSU at home. So you have to feel good about having those guys at Neyland. Also, can imagine the ticket prices for those. It's going to be a tough matchup for them as they travel down to College Station to take on Texas A&M and presumptive quarterback Marcel Reed, who is from the Mid-State here, went to Montgomery Bell Academy. Also interesting matchup as they go to Arkansas again. Arkansas beat them last year in Fayetteville, so Tennessee might have some revenge on their mind. Interesting with the rivalries for Tennessee, Calvin, really quickly. Obviously, Alabama is considered a big rivalry for both sides. I wonder if Tennessee fans truly consider Kentucky and Vanderbilt their second and third rivalry. You can make a case for Florida in Tennessee. You can make a case for Georgia in Tennessee. So, your thoughts on maybe the SEC choosing Alabama, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt as Tennessee's permanent opponents, and your thoughts on their 2026 slate?
Yeah, I was really surprised that Tennessee didn't get to keep Florida as one of their permanent rivalries. I think of Tennessee Florida as a bigger rivalry than Tennessee Vanderbilt or Tennessee and Kentucky, just because that's, over the last couple of years, Tennessee's kind of dominated that matchup. And for, much of the last 20 years, Florida dominated it for the most part, but it was always a bigger storyline surrounding Tennessee and Florida than there is Tennessee and Vanderbilt or Tennessee and Kentucky, just because Tennessee always beats Vanderbilt and Kentucky, except for those couple of years when Derek Mason was at Vanderbilt beating Tennessee. But their schedule, their SEC schedule next year, the only tough road game they have is Texas A&M, like you said, and Alabama, Kentucky, Auburn, LSU,
Yeah,
Texas.
South Carolina. I would give South Carolina some credit.
South Carolina some
credit.
South Carolina's been better over the last couple of years, but I mean, I wouldn't exactly. I don't think anybody would expect Tennessee to go in there and lose that game. Just looking a year ahead, but I would say 75-25. A lot of people would expect Tennessee to win that game, but inarguably the toughest road game they have is Texas A&M. And getting all those tough games at home is certainly going to make things easier on them next year. Especially with the 12-team playoff, 2 or 3 losses in the SEC is still going to get you in the playoff.
Really quick, one note, a game I'm looking forward to in 2027, the return of Lane Kiffin once again to Knoxville when Ole Miss comes a calling. And Mark, really quickly, if you could scroll up to Alabama for me, just really quickly. They should be all the way at the top. I know it is a very slow website. But the note I was going to point out is no LSU as the permanent rival for Alabama. And to me, that is a rivalry that is notorious. You could stop right there, Mark. I think you just passed LSU, and that can make the point either. They do play each other next year, but no LSU Alabama as the permanent rivalry. That seems kind of insane to me. You see there in 2027, they don't play.
Yeah, that's probably more insane than not having Tennessee, Florida as a permanent rivalry. For years there, LSU was the only team that could give Alabama a game. And, it's one of those rivalries that makes the SEC what it is. Now, obviously, everybody's really good, but, Alabama, LSU is just one of those ones that people get more excited about than others.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward. I don't understand the Mississippi State as Alabama's permanent rival, but that's just my opinion. Maybe Mississippi State was lacking rivalry opponents besides Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. But nonetheless, that's a nice look at the SEC schedule. Coming up here after a commercial break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Friend of the show, Heather Williams, will join us to talk a little NASCAR, a little ETSU football. So stay with us.
just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back in. It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. That is Calvin White. We're joined now by friend of the show, Heather Williams, for her weekly NASCAR segment. Heather, how are you doing? Looks like Heather is muted a little bit. Let's see if we can get her going.
Probably works better if the mute button's off.
There you go. We can hear you now. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you guys.
Heather, let's dive right into it. Round of 12 kicked off this past weekend at the Magic Mile New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and it was Team Penske pretty much dominating from start to finish. When they came off the trailer, it was Ryan Blaney capturing the checkered flag, get into the lobster. He said that was something that he's been wanting since a kid. When he saw his dad driving around the track, he got the lobster and punched his ticket to the round of 8. Hendersonville native Josh Berry, a Penske affiliate in the Wood Brothers machine, comes home second. Joey Logano started on the pole this weekend. So it was a blue oval brigade up in New Hampshire from start to finish. Just give us your thoughts really quickly on Ryan Blaney. It seems like when we get to this part of the season, he starts to peak and get better and better as he inches towards Phoenix. Talk about his victory this weekend, Heather.
Well, I think it just goes to show that Penske's still the king when it comes to the short flat tracks, right? New Hampshire, Phoenix, Martinsville. Those are the tracks where that team shines. And, you know, I think everybody that's not in a Penske car is looking forward to the championship race moving away from a short flat track because, I mean, Ryan Blaney looks like the guy to beat at this point in the season because he's running well other places and he's winning at those types of tracks. So you said it's a big week for Ford, but more importantly, a big week for Penske and really I guess Martinsville is really the last short flat track and it's also the cutoff before Phoenix. So, I mean, they look strong, and as strong as Joe Gibbs Racing looked in the first 3 races, is their Achilles heel really showed on those short flat tracks this weekend, which on the flip side is not a good sign if they want to win a championship. So really interesting weekend for sure as far as championship implications go.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. It just seems like there is something in Ryan Blaney's driving style, whether it's the grip in the car, his ability to manage his equipment. When we get into longer runs in these scenarios and races, it seems like he's one of the premium passers in this series of just saving his equipment, being able to wrap the bottom per se. We saw it this weekend, particularly in turns 1 and 2, how he was able to cut his machine to the bottom of the racetrack, particularly past Josh Berry there late. Is that just something that's in his driving style, or is it something mechanically, equipment-wise, that Penske and Ford has kind of, you mentioned, figured out on those flatter tracks?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's something that he's developed as he's gotten older. I mean, I think you see older, more experienced drivers get better at that. And while he's, I think, a little bit younger than Josh Berry, he's been doing this longer. And I just think the experience to be able to manage your car over a long run is something you just get better with at time. You see that a lot from Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex when he was driving, were all drivers that were very good at that. And so I just think that's a sign of his maturity as a race car driver.
Heather, we're going to let you play a little therapist here on this next question. We
gosh.
saw the Joe Gibbs fiasco this weekend with Denny Hamlin wrecking his teammate, Ty Gibbs, Ty holding him up, and teammate Christopher Bell, for that matter, for around 10th or 11th place this past weekend at New Hampshire. Joe Gibbs was asked about it post-race, and he said, that's something that their drivers, they're going to have to discuss that like normal. Obviously, Joe being the grandfather of Ty. Give us your thoughts on that situation and what occurred on the track between those two. Obviously, temper is boiling over with the inability to pass with the race car for Denny.
Well, I mean, I think that for everybody involved, it was too early to be acting like that. But I will say it does show Ty's immaturity a little bit. And I think we all know that. I mean, he's 22 years old. And, sometimes the pressure of this sport, he doesn't handle all that great, especially he feels panic because at every level that he's been in sports, he's found success very quickly, found victory lane very quickly. He's now 117 races into his Cup career and doesn't have a win. And so that internal clock of his is ticking. He feels panic. But he's also got to know the situation, right? You just cannot, if your teammate is faster, be a rolling chicane for them. Like, you just cannot be in his way. And I think that was Denny's frustration. Now, Denny is, any of us that are older children have heard this a lot, and you hate to hear it. You're the grown-up, be the grown-up. You're the older one, be the older one. And Denny's got to try to be that. But also, Denny's clock is ticking. He's 44 years old and he hasn't won a championship, right? He's also got a sense of urgency going on. But it was really interesting. I was on the NASCAR Zoom today with Austin Cindric, and he talked about how they talk about this kind of stuff at Penske, and they talk about how you have to take care of your teammate first. Like, the most important thing is a Penske win. And I think, actually, on his show today, Larry Mack talked about how they talked about this at Childress Racing. The number one thing you can't do is help another person win a race. By wrecking your teammate or wrecking yourself in the process or whatever, you're helping someone else win the race. It's something they've got to work out. Knowing the personality of both Denny and Ty, I don't know if they will. I think it'll be one of those things where they just kind of agree to coexist. But it is really interesting because there's a lot on the line for Denny, like his chances of winning a championship. And I know he's downplaying it and saying he really wants to get to 60 wins, and that's the most important thing. But his chances of winning a championship are few and far between now at 44 years old. This might be his last greatest chance, because when you lose it, when you fall off, you don't see it coming. Guys, Martin Truex Jr. won 6 or 7 races, and the next year he couldn't. I mean, he still was decent in the points, but he couldn't win a race. Same thing with Kevin Harvick. He won like 7 races, and then he couldn't win a race. He was still making the playoffs. He was still running consistently, but he wasn't winning. So, I'm glad I'm not inside of Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm glad I'm not Joe Gibbs or Chris Gabehart, the director of competition there, because I'm sure it's been a very interesting week.
Heather, we saw a lot of separation this weekend in the point standings. Just looking at those really quickly, but those below the cut line heading to Kansas this weekend: Ross Chastain at -12, Austin Cindric at -19, and the 23-11 teammates of Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace, 23 and 27 points respectively below the cut line. And I guess the good news, if you're those 23-11 teammates, is you're heading to Kansas, which is a track they have historically ran well at, and Toyota overall. Really, those first couple of years with the next gen, it was Toyota dominant. So what's the goal? Obviously, the goal is to win every week. If you're Toyota and 23-11 with a team with Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan at your helm. But what do you think qualifies a good week for Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick? Is it something where they can still probably point their way in, or are they looking at must win?
I mean, they lost 23. For instance, Bubba, he was 1 point above the cut line. He lost 28 points in the race. He can gain 28 points in the race, right? But you do feel like he does need to run well at Kansas. While he is much improved road course racer, I don't think Bubba really wants to go to the Roval needing to win, right? He's got to put himself, at least within the teens below the cut line or even above the cut line going into the Roval if he really wants to feel comfortable. Like they can't have another race like they had this week where they show up and they're completely out to lunch. If you're Tyler Reddick, I think you feel a little bit better, even if you're in the 20s going into the Roval, because Tyler is a really good road course racer. And so he can probably make up that kind of point at the Roval. And the same thing for Austin Cindric. He's a good road course racer, so he could definitely make up those kind of points at the Roval. But regardless of who you are, if you're below the cut line, you don't want to lose more ground, right? 28 points is manageable. It's not great, especially for the last guy, because it's how many people you have to jump. But you can't go into the Roval 30 points back, 40 points back, because then you're definitely in a must-win situation.
Yeah, I mentioned just heading to Kansas this week, second race of the round of 12. Last year during this race in the fall race, it was Ross Chastain capturing the checkered flag. Him and Kyle Busch battling late in those closing laps. Kyle spins, Ross takes the win. Obviously, so yeah, I mentioned starting off with the next-gen car, it was kind of a Toyota dominant track. It seems like Chevy particularly has caught up. Chastain has won there. Larson has won there. Byron has won there. Maybe some drivers that you're looking for. Obviously, I'm sure those are on the list to maybe be in contention to win this weekend.
Well, I honestly believe that we're still going to get a driver outside of the playoffs to win here, especially in this round. So, I look at like a Carson Hocevar. I know Spire hasn't been that great on the mile and a half, but Carson has been pretty good. He was really good at Nashville. I just feel like he's really close to winning a race. Same thing with Ty Gibbs. If he can just calm down and stay out of the way of his teammate, he's really close to winning a race. He's led a bunch of laps recently. So, I think those two guys outside of the playoffs for sure, but more than likely it's going to be the same cast of characters it always is this time of year in the playoffs. Those playoff guys just find another gear and they step up to another level. So I expect, Denny and Christopher Bell specifically in the Gibbs cars, and then William Byron and Larson in the Hendrick cars to probably be the guys that are up front.
They're flipping over to ETSU. They won 26-16 over Elon this past Saturday. The defense was probably the story of that game. Only gave up 16 points. Only gave up 6 in the second half. And we talked about, going into this game, how ETSU really kind of needed a win to kind of figure out what their identity was. What did you kind of figure out about ETSU after this one?
I think that they are exactly kind of who I thought they were. I mean, they've played a pretty tough schedule to start the year. Murray State start notwithstanding, because that's not a particularly great football team. Tennessee, West Georgia, and Elon are all teams. Tennessee obviously a FBS team, but the other two are teams that feel like they have a chance to make the FCS playoffs. So ETSU was competitive in both games and went 1-1 in those games. So they are probably a team that has a chance to compete for the Southern Conference. Southern Conference is not that strong this year. So, even at 2-2, I think that they are probably considered one of the teams that has a chance to win the conference. I think they feel like they have a chance to win the conference at this point. When I asked Will Healy how he would evaluate his season at 2-2, he said, I feel like we have the potential, but I'm not happy. I don't like being 2-2. Being 500 is never acceptable. So I think they have more in them. I think that they found out by finally beating a good team after losing to the two good teams that they played that previously, that they can compete and beat good teams. And as you mentioned, the defense, to no surprise. I mean, everybody knew going into the season that the defense had the possibility to have a game like this. The defense was really strong in that game.
And then, you mentioned last week how the running back room was supposed to be one of the more talented groups on offense going into the year, but they hadn't really kind of shown out up until the Elon game. But, they, as a room, they ran for 164 and 3 touchdowns. Cade McNamara was 30 for 45 for 268, but didn't throw a touchdown. How much can those running backs, kind of help Cade McNamara out, even when he is having a good game? Just, finding ways to get in the end zone.
Cade didn't throw for any touchdowns, and he had a couple of bad throws, but he threw the ball pretty well. He had a couple of big strikes down the field in that game, and it was all his game because Jacoby Criswell. I keep saying Jacoby Gillespie. Jacoby Criswell. Criswell is injured currently with a rib injury. We met with Coach Healy on Monday, and Criswell had not seen the doctor yet, so that we didn't get an update on his status. But he was hopeful. Coach still wants to play two quarterbacks because Criswell does run the ball better, and he likes running him, playing him around the end zone to finish off drives, to run. But in that same vein, McNamara ran one in for a touchdown this week, so he can do it if he needs to. But I think the running back stepping up is key because it takes the pressure. I mean, everybody is keying in on those quarterbacks. They're huge names from huge schools transferring down to the FCS level, and I think everybody has decided they are not going to let Criswell or McNamara beat them. So then you have to have the running game going to loosen up the pass game and to allow those big plays down the field to back the secondary up and to be able to make that happen. So I think it was really important that the running backs did play the way that they did this weekend, and I think it's a good sign for ETSU going forward.
And then I might need a little help with a name pronunciation here. Is it Ephraim Floyd?
Ephraim
Floyd. He caught 12 balls for 145 yards Saturday. He's the leading receiver on the team by a little under 150 yards. How has he kind of separated himself to be that top target on offense for those quarterbacks?
Well, he's been a part of the team for a while now. And in fact, I think he's on his third coach this many years. But I just think, being an older guy and being a leader on the team has helped him. Now, all of the receivers are incredibly talented. And honestly, most of them have been around for a bit now. But I just, and I think all of them could step up. I've seen other guys in that receiving room step up, but right now he's got the hot hand, and he definitely has speed. So I think that's been a positive for them. And
ETSU went down to West Georgia 2 weeks ago, and only lost by 4 to the number 25 FCS team in the country. They've got the number 23 team this week in Mercer. We saw them play a close game on the road to a top-ranked FCS team a couple of weeks ago. Do you think that this is a winnable game for ETSU this week?
Oh, for sure. It's a winnable game. I mean, first of all, William B. Green Stadium is a tough place to play because ETSU, now this past week, the crowd wasn't that great because there was a 2.5-hour lightning delay, but the cheerleaders, the band, and quite a bit of the crowd stuck around. But for a game against Mercer, especially if the weather's good, there'll be, standing room only 8,000 to 10,000 people there, and it's not a huge stadium. They're right on top of you. And it's a tough place to play because of that, because of the atmosphere. And Mercer knows that. Mercer and ETSU have been in some tough games there. So it's absolutely a winnable game. As I mentioned, I think, Mercer's the only team in the SoCon that people are really paying attention to, because some of the other teams that we thought were going to be good have kind of struggled. Western Carolina, Chattanooga. So I think that I think the conference is wide open. I think if ETSU wins this game this week, and like I said, I think they can. I think that they're actually in the driver's seat as far as the Southern Conference goes, because I think by knocking off the defending champs and the ranked team that they've made a statement to the conference. So I think they can win. I think it'll be a great game, and hopefully I'll be the one out there. We haven't decided who's going yet.
There you go. Heather Williams of WCYB Sports, kind enough to join us here on a wild and wacky edition of Main Street Sports Today on this Wednesday. Heather, I'll wrap up by saying this. Last week, I told you that my fantasy team was 0-2 and your Chiefs were 0-2 going into week 3. Well, we both picked up wins this week, and so we can celebrate a little easier heading into this week. I know you got a big matchup with the Ravens on Sunday, so I know you're looking forward to that one.
I am. And by the way, in my fantasy league with my family, which we play DraftKings, I had won both weeks and I lost this week. But I'll tell you, I'll take a Chiefs win over a fantasy win 100 times. So yeah, I sacrificed my fantasy for my Chiefs.
My Packers were 2-0, and then they proceeded to lose to the Browns. So I'm in shame. The last couple of days. So hopefully they bounce back against the Cowboys, which will be a much anticipated return for Micah Parsons this week on Sunday Night Football. Heather, thanks as always for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Coming up on the break, after the break, excuse me, we'll talk a little baseball. We'll wrap up the Braves series with the Washington Nationals and get into some playoff clinching scenarios right after this. So stick with us.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
September 24th, 1983. Braves outfielder Dale Murphy became the sixth player in Major League Baseball history to join the 30-30 club when he walked, stole second base, and scored the game-winning run on a Rafael Ramirez RBI single in a 3-2 win over the Los Angeles Dodgers. Murphy went on to win National League MVP that season, batting .302 with 36 home runs, 121 RBIs, and 30 stolen bases. That was today's day in Braves history, September 24th, 1983. That was the second of back-to-back National League MVP awards for the Braves Hall of Famer and should be Major League Baseball Hall of Famer as well. Last night down in the A, it was the Braves extending their winning streak to 10 consecutive games with a 3-2 win over the Washington Nationals. Michael Harris hit 2 home runs in that game, taking his total on the season to 19. And Ronald Acuna Jr. hit his 20th home run of the season as the Braves defeated the Nats. Herschel Waldrop got the start on the mound for the Braves in his final start of the year. He was splendid once again. 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. Calvin, they wrapped that series this afternoon down at Truist Park. It was the Washington Nationals picking up a 4-3 win. James Wood hit 2 solo home runs in that matchup for the Nats. Solo home runs were the diet in the offense for the Braves this afternoon. It was Drake Baldwin with a solo shot, Marcell Ozuna with a solo shot, and Eli White in the 9th inning with a solo shot as well. Bryce Elder took the loss in that one. He came in 8-10 on the year with a 5.36 ERA. So, Calvin, the Braves had it rolling until today. Nonetheless, you have to be happy with the way that they have played baseball. Remiss to note that Ozzy Albies suffered a broken handmade bone in his left hand 2 days ago. So he is out for obviously the rest of this season, and we'll see how that plays moving forward. But outside of the injury news to Ozzy and their return of one Charlie Morton to the Braves for the final week of the season, the Braves have been playing some better baseball of late.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder where it was the entire rest of the season. I saw a post yesterday. There was a point in the season, early on, in I think April or May, the Braves, had won a couple games to get back to 3 games under 500, and then they lost 14 of the next 17, and just kind of never recovered from that. But But this last week and a half, uh, it kind of, that's the Braves team we wanted to see all season. Now, it wasn't against many good teams, outside of Detroit. But, either way, that's the past week and a half is a lot better than they've looked the entire rest of the season. And Wade and I talked about it last week. Even though the Braves were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, they could still kind of, you know, give Braves fans a little bit of something exciting to watch by kind of playing spoiler to some of the other teams. And they did exactly that with Detroit. They swept Detroit and, kind of gave the Guardians some wiggle room to reach back up in that division. Obviously, Cleveland beat Detroit last night. Detroit's
Scary
now,
situation in that game, by the way.
yeah, Detroit's hanging on for a wild card spot now, and as of today, Cleveland's firmly in the playoffs. So Braves played a little bit of spoiler to the Tigers, but wish we could have seen that for most of the rest of the season.
Yeah, Calvin mentioned that game last night in the AL Central between the Guardians and the Tigers. They're battling out for that pennant chase and for that division title. Last night, a scary scene in Cleveland. Detroit Tigers starter Tarek Skubal, obviously one of the best pitchers in the game, unintentionally hit Guardians batter David Fry in the face with a fastball. He was hospitalized after the game, so we'll try to find you a note on that scary scene for sure. You mentioned the Braves, though. And their loss today, 4-3 to the Nats once again. It's the Braves' 35th one-run loss this season. So they're 20 and 35 in one-run games. Calvin, this is a note from Kevin Keneally on X. So he is my source. If the Braves had gone 500 in those games, they would have entered today with a 2-game lead in the wild card standings. So that just shows you all you needed to know, that the Braves, for as bad as this season has been, injury-wise, not having your starting rotation, Chris Sale going on the shelf, Spencer Swelling back, Grant Holmes, Ronaldo Lopez. I mean, the list goes on and on. Ronald Acuna missing half the year, Spencer Strider missing the first couple weeks of the season, Ozzie Albies breaking his hand, Austin Riley. I mean, the list, Jerkson Profar being suspended. I mean, it's almost what hasn't happened in this season for the Braves. And yet all of that, if you just flip that record in one-run games, the Braves are potentially in the battle, at least, like they were last year, in the battle for a playoff spot. So that is wild to say. The Braves will wrap up their season this weekend at Truist Park against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We mentioned the return of Charlie Morton. Charlie pitched for both the Braves. Obviously, he's a World Series champion with the Braves and the Astros, for that matter, and the Pirates. So hopefully Charlie will get his one more opportunity to pitch on the mound at Truist Park against his former ball club and with the club that he assuredly wants to retire with. The Braves have announced their starters for that series, and Charlie is not among them, so he will have to come out of relief in those appearances. Wade's Astros continued to reel last night. They have lost 4 in a row. They were losers last night in Sacramento, 5-1 to the Athletics. A 3-run 5th inning was what dealt the Astros in. They trailed Seattle by 4 games in the AL West standings. Seattle has an opportunity to clinch the division tonight. Their magic number is 1. Seattle can clinch with a win tonight or a Houston loss in Sacramento. The Tigers are also 1 game up on the Stros in the AL wildcard standings. So you mentioned the Tigers really struggling and limping down the stretch. Well, you have 2 teams in the American League struggling and limping down the stretch. That is the Tigers and the Astros. First pitch tonight in Sacramento, it's 9:05. And I guess if you're the Tigers, or not the Tigers, excuse me, the Astros, the one silver lining is that you have Hunter Brown taking the mound. He is 12-8 on the season. 8 losses despite a 2.3 ERA. That's kind of nuts in my mind. He will be opposed by Luis Severino, who is 7-11 on the season with a 4.72 ERA. But, Calvin, we had mentioned on several weeks on this show that nobody really wanted to win that AL West. It was back and forth between the Mariners and the Astros for a large part of the season. Well, down the stretch, Calvin, it has been Seattle, and all Seattle. They picked up the sweep in Houston this past weekend, which included thumping on Sunday Night Baseball. It is all Mariners in that American League West.
Yeah, the Astros have had a 2 or 3 game lead over the last couple of weeks, and nobody really wanted to take a hold of that division. But Seattle went on a hot streak, and Houston got cold right at the right time for Seattle to make a push and take that division. Like you said, their magic number is 1. And when they made it, I think Seattle being in the playoffs is really cool. Just because last year, when they made it for the first time, and I don't even remember how long ago, they didn't make it very far. But seeing a good Seattle Mariners team in the playoffs is exciting. I think the baseball playoffs are exciting to begin with, but having a good Mariners team in there, especially when that's a franchise that hasn't been very good over much of the last 20-25 years. It's really cool to have the Mariners in the playoffs, and we're gonna have to get used to maybe not seeing the Astros in the playoffs for the first time in who knows however long. We got used to the Astros.
It is.
We got
Right.
used to the
Go
Astros,
finish.
we got used to the Astros making runs to the AL Championship Series and the World Series just about, every year for much of the last decade. I couldn't even tell you the last time the Astros missed the playoffs.
That is a good question. I'll let you research that while I jump into this next note about the Mariners. And we left a note on the next article from Mark if he wants to pull it up. Last night, the Mariners come from behind win last night in the Pacific Northwest against the Colorado Rockies. Josh Naylor with a 3-run double in the 8th inning to get things started. Obviously, they have AL MVP candidate Kyle Raleigh is pictured right there, who will go neck and neck for Aaron Judge for the American League title. Calvin, the Mariners clinched their playoff spot last night. They'll look to have another champagne bath tonight as they wrap up with the Rockies. How old were you in 2001?
0. I
You were
was not born.
0.
I was not
So
born.
you were not the last time that the Mariners won a division title. You were not born yet. They will look to make that history either I guess tonight as they wrap up with the Rockies. They can do it with a win or a loss by Houston. I think you would much rather um, do it on a victory. Their celebrations on the infield after they win games are phenomenal. They get in a circle and they do a little dance. So I think there's no better than a feel good story to see the Mariners playing meaningful postseason baseball. You mentioned the last time they made the postseason, they played the Astros in the first round and they were eliminated in the division series, I believe. Know the Mariners are looking to make some noise. It's been a long time coming for fans of the Pacific Northwest. So congrats to all the Mariners fans. It's very richly deserved. I would dream of a postseason where we can not only get the Guardians, the Tigers, and the Mariners, and it'd be good for the American League to have teams like that. Good to have the Cubs in the National League. Wish the Braves were in it, but it's good to have the Cubs playing postseason baseball as well. Some other teams wrapped up some postseason berths last night. We'll start though with the race for the wild card in the National League. Another team that was reeling. We talked about the reeling American League teams, Detroit and Houston. Well, the Mets were reeling. They found themselves in the battle with not only Cincinnati, who's another team that would be really good to see make the playoffs, and Arizona. The Mets came from behind last night at Wrigley Field with a win over the North Side Cubs. The Mets currently hold a 1-game lead in the National League wildcard standings, which is surely going to go down to the last day. The Reds lost last night to Pittsburgh 4-2. So that one's going to come down to the wire too. So it's nothing better than having meaningful pennant chase baseball in the last week of the regular season.
Yeah, this time of year is always one of the better times of year. I think that postseason baseball is it's one of, if not the best, postseasons out of all the sports. Like we've said it a couple times over the last couple of weeks, we hardly ever say that any game, or we hardly ever say that every game in a 162 game season matters. And down the stretch, we're seeing why those games are starting to matter this time of year. Like you said, Diamondbacks and Reds both a game back of that final NL wildcard spot. The Mets were in playoff position for most of the year, and they've started slipping over the last couple of weeks. And Diamondbacks and Reds both only 3 games over 500. So I guess that just tells you, how much parity there is in baseball and in the National League, that we've got teams with near losing records that are, vying for a playoff spot this time of year. But, if you get in the playoffs, it means you've got a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the American League now, I just kind of threw these notes up there. I'll be better organized next time, Calvin. We mentioned the race for the American League Central, and last night the Guardians and Tigers went head-to-head for the second time in as many weeks, and it was the Guardians picking up the win over the Tigers and their ace, Tarek Skubal. Detroit held a 2-0 lead heading into the bottom of the sixth inning last night in Cleveland, and it was the Guardians scoring 5 unanswered to win. Detroit has lost 7 in a row.
Looks like we lost David. We're going to try. For those of you watching, I wish David could see himself frozen. But I kind of got the gist of what David was saying. Tigers have been slipping over the last couple of weeks. We talked about how the Braves kind of helped the Guardians out a little bit, sweeping Detroit in their series last week, kind of helping the Guardians get back in that playoff race as we work on trying to get David back in here. But, setting up for what's expected to be a really fun MLB playoffs. The baseball playoffs are always really exciting, and having teams that we don't often see or that we haven't seen in the playoffs over the last couple of years get in there, like Cleveland, Detroit, and all those teams like that. Gonna move on to the Yankees now. The New York Yankees clinched a playoff spot with a walk-off win over the White Sox last night. Jose Caballero proudly carried a championship belt given to the player of the game after every New York victory. Around his left shoulder as alcohol-soaked chaos raged around him in the home clubhouse Tuesday night. Caballero swatted a 2-out walk-off single on the 9th pitch of his at-bat to lift the Yankees to a 3-2 victory over the Chicago White Sox and clinch the 60th postseason berth in franchise history. Obviously, Aaron Judge been in that MVP race with Cal Raleigh for most of the season. Yankees are firmly in the playoffs now. Coupled with the Toronto Blue Jays' loss to the Boston Red Sox, the Yankees moved within a game of first place in the American League East with 5 games remaining. Toronto, however, holds the tiebreaker over New York. The Yankees would have to surpass the Blue Jays in the standings by the end of Sunday to claim their 22nd division title and earn a bye into the AL Division Series. And that'll do it for our MLB chatter. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the grab bag. Stick with us.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, It's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back to the Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I am David Wilson, back, hopefully, for my connection issues on the hotspot right now at the house. Makes no sense. That is Calvin White. Had to sprint down the hallway to grab my charger to plug up my phone, considering that's what's keeping the computer going right now, as the phone is on 3% and dying quickly. I'm out of breath now, out of shape.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, whoever watched the back half of MLB Chatter obviously knows that it was very obvious. I only co-host this show 2 days a week. We were crippling and struggling to get through the back half of MLB Chatter. Hopefully, you're back now.
I left some notes for you. We didn't talk about ABS. That's a big deal.
No, we did not. We talked about the Yankees.
Okay, I guess that's good enough. I did run us out of time. Time to jump in the latest edition of the Grab Bag here as we entered the second hour of our show. Appreciate you joining us here. The WNBA playoffs, Calvin. We talked about it in the rundown. Both teams, the Phoenix Mercury and the Las Vegas Aces, evening their respective series last night in the WNBA semifinals. That's what you call it. Only 8 teams make it. It was a historic win last night, though, for the Mercury, as they had a comeback against the Minnesota Lynx. I'll dive into that here. Minnesota had never lost a playoff game in which they led at the half by double digits. They were 15-0 in those previous games. They also had never lost any game, playoffs or regular season, where they were up by 16 and were at the half. Once again, they were 61-0 in those games. It was Phoenix picking up an 89-83 win. They were the number 4 seed. They trailed the Mercury 48-32 at the half. The top-seeded Lynx were well on their way to taking a 2-0 lead in that series. Then here comes Phoenix. Sammy Whitcomb's game-time three-pointer with 4.3 seconds left in regulation sent this game to overtime. It was the first time in WNBA playoff history since 2014 that a team had a 20-point rally to come back and win.
Yeah, the WNBA playoffs have been pretty exciting so far. Like you mentioned, both semifinal rounds tied at 2, and the Aces absolutely dominated the Fever last night.
We'll get into that.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about Phoenix first.
Yeah, but Phoenix. It's just been. I don't even know what to say. It's been an exciting WNBA playoffs. We're going to talk about Aces Fever in a second, but both those series tied at 2-2. Obviously shaping up for an exciting semifinal round and hopefully WNBA finals in the playoffs.
Yeah. It was a gut check win, I'll say that, for the Phoenix Mercury. Obviously, you lose first game of the series to the number 1 seed. They have home court advantage up at the Target Center in the Twin Cities. You're down by 20 at one point last night, and it's just a gut check moment, right? You're able to get back to Phoenix with the series 1-1. It's anybody's ball game now. It's a best-of-3 series moving forward. The Lynx, as we mentioned, the best team in women's basketball during the regular season. They were 34-10. And 20-2 at home. Just really, I kind of mentioned just a gut check right there for Phoenix.
Looks like we're having connection issues with David again. I'll go ahead and jump us into
to get it done last night.
Oh,
I'm here. I heard you the whole time.
you
I
were
mentioned.
frozen again.
Did
We
you hear me
couldn't
on the?
hear you.
Did you? Sorry. Did you hear me on the transitioning going to Las Vegas last night?
No, you were frozen for about 10 seconds. We couldn't hear you.
Sorry about that. Transitioning to the game in Las Vegas last night. Remember, the Indiana Fever took game one of that series. Those Aces, as you mentioned just moments ago, all over Indiana last night to even that series as they head back to Indianapolis. 90-68 victors for the Aces last night. Championship pedigree. That's something that Becky Hammond has talked about repeatedly with her team. She challenged them in between games one and games two, get a little bit more feisty. And that occurred. There were 41 fouls last night, Calvin, in that game. 41. Las Vegas with four-time now MVP. Asia Wilson heard the call and got things going for Las Vegas. Asia had 25 points last night, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, and 2 blocks. Vegas is 11-0 in their playoff history when Asia scores at least 25 points. So Lexi Hall last night, Lexi Hull, excuse me, with 15 points for Indiana, their leading scorer. Your thoughts last night on Vegas all over Indiana?
Yeah, there's a reason Asia Wilson's the four-time WNBA MVP. She's been the best player in the league for a while. And, she doesn't have to carry the Aces, but because they've got some other really good players, but it seems like she always puts together some monster games when the Aces needed it most. And obviously trailing 1-0 in that series, they needed a win, force a game 3. And, now with the reigning champion, the Liberty, out of the playoffs, obviously the Lynx were the best team in the regular season. But the Aces have just been one of those teams over the last couple of years that you can never count out. And it's shaping up to, where the Aces are looking like they're going to make another run at another championship.
Yeah, I am dying for Calvin. I'm dying for, not to discredit Phoenix or Indiana. Would I be more appealed to have an Indiana final with Caitlin Clark? I love a series right now with Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham against Las Vegas. Obviously, those two are injured and out for the season, but I'm dying for the Lynx versus the Las Vegas Aces with Naphesia Collier, who was probably the runner-up per se, the second leading candidate for MVP, and Asia Wilson. I'm just seeing those two on the court, the best team in the regular season versus a team, that has multiple championships to its pedigree. So that is what I am secretly rooting for as we wind down these WNBA playoffs. Game 3, respectively, for those programs for those series Friday night from Phoenix and from Indiana. So stay tuned to that on ESPN. Moving forward, one of the consistent players in the National Football League, not only statistically, but for most people's fantasy teams. Don't know if Mike Evans is on Calvin's fantasy team, but it was reported last night by the NFL media that Mike is expected to miss multiple games. He suffered an injury in their Week 3 win over the Falcons. That's not the case. Excuse me. They had the Week 3 win over the Jets, so a misprint right there by CBS News. But he's out multiple weeks with a hand injury. This was something that limited him last year as well. So for you fantasy owners, maybe make a trade for Emeka Ibuka, who's become the number one target here for Baker Mayfield down in South Florida. But Mike Evans has been one of those consistent players in the game. Calvin, he's gone over 1,000 yards for his entire career. He's very dependable, reliable. So the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, etc., that whole entire coaching staff is going to miss the production of number 13.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that, I picked up on my fantasy team, drafted him 4 or 5 years in a row just because he would slip to the later rounds. And, people always go for the sexy pick. But, I mean, Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards every year of his career. He's consistent. He'll catch for 1,000 yards, and he'll have 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. But obviously he was the biggest weapon out there for Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. and obviously they're going to miss him. He is getting up there a little bit in age, but he's like we said, he's consistent. He's going to have a good shot at making the Hall of Fame someday, probably. And obviously the Buccaneers are going to miss him for however long he's out.
Yeah, just a couple weeks. Hamstring injuries, Calvin. They're just one of those nagging injuries where they can flare up and re-aggravate at any time. So hopefully they can get that solved. Obviously, he's a big part of what they do. The Bucks are 3-0, right? You have to think that they're one of the better teams up there in the NFC conference with the Philadelphia Eagles. I know the Rams lost to the Eagles, but the Rams are up there, the Packers are up there. So there is a very top-heavy NFC, and it feels, although the Eagles are your defending world champions, that it could be potentially wide open. So that is definitely something that we will monitor moving forward. I had to throw this note in there, Calvin. I guess you were in high school when Loyola Chicago made its run several years ago and beat Tennessee in the postseason with Sister Jean. I mean, there's no better story if you're a writer, a feature writer, sports writer, whatever, news, copy, than Sister Jean. Well, the iconic Sister Jean who led Loyola.
David's frozen again. I don't know if he knows that. Maybe he'll unfreeze and join us again here in a second. But Sister Jean, the beloved chaplain and mentor for Loyola Chicago's men's basketball team, retired at the age of 106, ending more than 6 decades of service to the university and its students. The viral sensation who rose to national prominence during Loyola Chicago's surprising run to the Final Four in the 2018 NCAA tournament stepped back from her duties due to health concerns. According to the Loyola Phoenix, the school's student newspaper, Sister Jean missed the Ramblers' appearance in the NIT semifinal in April, prompting the university to announce her retirement earlier this month. We have a quote here from Loyola Chicago president Mark C. Reed. He says, while Sister Jean is no longer able to be physically present on campus, she remains a beloved friend, trusted advisor, and loyal Rambler, cheering for our teams and praying for us all daily. Her profile rose sharply during the 2018 NCAA tournament when cameras frequently caught her courtside cheering. The Ramblers, a number 11 seed that year, made a Cinderella run to the Final Four, capturing national attention and making Sister Jean a symbol of the team's resilience and close-knit culture. Ever since that Final Four run in 2018, she kind of became one of those synonymous figures with college basketball, whether Loyola Chicago was good or not. That's the beauty of the NCAA tournament. We always talk about one shining moment. All it takes is one opportunity to, make a run to the Final Four and kind of put yourself into national prominence. And Sister Jean was kind of the most synonymous figure with that Rambler program. Even after that season, she remained a visible presence at games and on campus and providing encouragement for the basketball program. She also published a book in 2023 called Wake Up with Purpose, What I've Learned in My First 100 Years, reflecting on her life, career, and faith. Born in San Francisco, Sister Jean Dolores Schmidt joined the Sisters of Charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary and began teaching at Mundelein College in Chicago in 1961. When Mundelein merged with Loyola University Chicago in 1991, she continued to work on campus, taking on various roles. She became the chaplain for the men's basketball team in 1994, providing guidance, prayers, and mentorship for decades and becoming an enduring figure for generations of students and athletes. It looks like David's back with us now. David, we just finished up a solo rant.
Not you reading the whole story.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm sorry.
The people love Sister Jean. Now we get to talk about Ace Bailey.
They do, and I was looking forward to talking about Sister Jean. Lord knows how many more times my Wi-Fi is going to cut out. It's kind of bewildering me. So I apologize to anybody who's watching, not only on X but on Facebook and our streaming services for mainstream media. I apologize dearly. Thank you, Calvin, for ripping up Sister Jean. Our last note here in the grab bag before we head to the commercial. Ready to preview the Ryder Cup with our friend Virgil Herring. Ace Bailey, Calvin. Now, I don't know if you watched the NBA draft. Did you watch that this summer?
I usually watch the lottery.
Okay, Bailey was a lottery pick. He came into it with some demands, though. There was a certain list of teams that he told his manager, agent, etc., I don't want to play for. And one of the teams he said, I don't want to play for was the Utah Jazz. Well, Danny Ainge said, I don't care. They took Ace Bailey in the lottery with their respective pick. He has now fired his agent. Bailey is the 5th overall pick in this past draft. He was in the draft, but he has since fired his manager. I guess this has to do with him not ending up in the place that he wanted to be. His agent or manager, rather, was Omar Beatty, according to The Athletic, and Bailey is now seeking new representation moving forward. What's that process like in your mind, though, Calvin? I know this is just kind of just a throw-in piece of news here as we wrap up the grab bag. What's the thought process as a player, though, if you have a certain ideal system or organization that you would like to play for to start your career? You make a list and you made it known that these are the organizations that I do not want to be a part of, and yet one of those organizations draft you anyway. Is that something where you kind of blame the manager? How would you kind of handle or even summarize that situation?
Well, the entire point of the draft is for teams to try and get better, and the Utah Jazz were terrible last year, so they're obviously going to pick players that they think the teams are obviously going to pick players that they think are going to make them better. This isn't like the NBA draft isn't like the NFL where the worst team automatically gets the number 1 pick. There is a lottery, but the Utah Jazz just happen to have a high pick, and they were awful last year. And so they're going to pick whoever they think is going to make them better. Now, obviously, they're going to run into issues. They ran into a little bit issues, at the beginning of training camp, I believe, when, Ace Bailey showed up, I think 2 or 3 days later than the rest of the Utah Jazz rookies. But I read that they got a contract and all those things figured out. But, obviously he was a really good player in college. He was a really good prospect. And right now it looks like wherever he ends up playing or whatever NBA team he ends up playing for, it appears he's probably going to be a big help to whoever has him on their roster, whether it's the Jazz or not. Looks like David is frozen again. I think he keeps jinxing himself. Just hoping that his Wi-Fi comes out or stops buffering. But that'll do it for this week's edition of the Grab Bag. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Virgil Herring. He's a 2-time Tennessee PGA Teacher of the Year. We're going to pick his brain about the 2025 Ryder Cup, which starts on Friday. We're going to talk to him about U.S. versus Europe, his expectations for the Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black. So when we come back, we'll be joined by Virgil Herring. Make sure to stick with us.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Jones and Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones and Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back to this Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today. I'm Calvin White. That's David Wilson. He's a little grainy. Hopefully he's got his Wi-Fi situation figured out for the fourth or fifth time.
Probably not.
But this next segment is kind of my get back at David for making me endure our weekly NASCAR segment every Tuesday. We love Heather, but NASCAR, obviously, as David points out every time, is not my strong suit. But beginning this Friday is one of the best sporting events in all of sports, not just golf, the 2025 Ryder Cup. And we're excited to now be joined by two-time Tennessee PGA Teacher of the Year, Virgil Herring. Virgil, thank you for taking some time with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And, I kind of want to just start with, an overall kind of look at the Ryder Cup. Obviously, the U.S. won handedly in 2021. Europe kind of dominated it 2 years ago. The American team looks a lot different than it has over the last couple of Ryder Cups. That European team has a lot of continuity on it. Just what are some things that you're looking for going into the start of this year's Ryder Cup?
Well, I think it's very important for the American team to get off to a good start. That has been our long-standing issue since basically the mid-'80s of getting off to slow starts, relying on being able to close the gap with all of the individual play, because historically speaking, from top to bottom, the United States lineup has always been better than the Europeans. Now, I don't believe that's the case anymore, but historically speaking, they got to get off to a better start, and they have not done it except at Whistling Straits where they blew them away. And there's one. Right? Statistically speaking, they're almost identical. There's very little difference across the board on who's the longest, who are the best putters, who are the best iron players. So this is truly going to be whoever probably is the hottest putting team is going to win, which is usually the case. But this should be even more so because there's no true dominant side of it. I really, my only real concern is that each Ryder Cup, the escalation of the difficulties that the crowd brings into play has reached a place where it could be a bad situation. I think that how bad it got at the end of Italy 2 years ago is definitely going to be taken by the New Yorkers, who do not there's probably no group of people that are more patriotic and root more decisively for their country than New Yorkers. I hope it's not the one that kind of changes it all, because I sense that the volume is going to be cranked up at a level that we've not ever seen before. And I really wish that it wouldn't be that way. But I sense that we're coming close to the precipice of something really bad happening between a fan and a player. And we're getting close. I just hope it doesn't happen. And you can hear even in the press conferences that they're starting to get concerned that this is going to spin a little out of control. And I said it the Monday after the last Ryder Cup that this is going to be an issue. It certainly is.
And you talked about the teams a little bit, how you don't think there's a dominant side. And I've seen people talk about how they think that this is going to be probably the most evenly matched Ryder Cup we've had in a long time. But, the American team has 4 first-time players, and the only person on the European team that's never played in a Ryder Cup is Rasmus Højgaard. So, the European team has that continuity and experience. And, does it simply come down to putting like you're talking about? How do the Americans, have a shot in this thing?
Well, they definitely have a shot. I mean, and it's at home, and I can tell you right now, I've been in a lot of elite events. I've been to many Masters. I've coached in Masters. I've been at the Ryder Cup, and there is nothing, and I mean nothing, like the energy of a Ryder Cup. We never know how certain people's central nervous system are going to handle this. So every single player on the European side that has not played in America on a Ryder Cup, it's their rookie one too. And therein lies the dance. Who can handle the burden? America's burden is we've been getting off the slow starts. We've lost 10 of the last 14. We've lost our dominance in that place. And there's so many magnifying glasses on people looking at, why aren't we winning? We got the best player. We have the strongest team and we're not winning. What's going on? So everybody's got, their satellite dishes aimed right at the American team. And then the European team, they have to face a very hostile crowd on a very difficult golf course. And that's why it's home course advantage. Now there's some cool things about the how much the Ryder Cups have changed since the war on the shore in 1991. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's who can handle the pressure that they have the best under, without a doubt, the most pressure in all of golf.
And, coming into, obviously it's been a storyline the entire season. Keegan Bradley's the U.S. Ryder Cup captain. He mentioned it at the start of the year. He was only going to be a playing captain if he qualified on points. But, he had a season that in any other year would have been more than deserving of playing on a Ryder Cup team, but obviously didn't pick himself as one of the final 6 members. What do you think that process was like? For someone like him who loves the Ryder Cup as much as he does, he's played in it before. What do you think that says about him, that he kind of put his own kind of wishes aside and put his captaincy in front of playing on a Ryder Cup team and trying to build that continuity in that locker room?
Well, I think his idea of playing went away when the person he was hoping to bring in to be basically the coach or the captain of the team when he would go out and play was shot down by the PGA Tour. So I think that as soon as he lost that ability to have that person, then he's like, I don't feel good about leaving my post as the captain, plus the legacy of it being in New York where he went to college, and up real close to where he's from. He wants to probably do it the right way, and he doesn't want to not be doing something he should be doing as a captain while playing, and it ends up making a stain so much on the Ryder Cup that it ruins the whole situation for him. So I think he just owned up to the fact he's going to be the captain, and I probably think he made the right decision on that. And I think that he's going with it, and I think he's a great captain. And I think that if America wins, it'll largely be set up because the Americans putted better, but he was able to motivate them and get them on a common purpose. And that's going to be really important because I think that that's the hard part for America.
Do you think that him as the captain kind of brings a different element to the team? In the past, they've had captains that, they were still their playing peers, like they were playing competitively at the same time, but it was guys that were, a couple decades older than those guys, Jim Furyk, Steve Stricker, Zach Johnson is still playing, but he's a little bit older than the guys that have been on the Ryder Cup teams in the past. Do you think that Keegan Bradley kind of being in that same age bracket, still playing highly competitive golf with the players on the team that he's coaching, kind of brings a different element to the team?
I don't think it makes that much difference personally. I think that really what it comes down to is Mickelson wasn't a possible choice. This should have been Mickelson's. Tiger's got too many things going on with the tour and his son and his son's game, and he's got too many irons in the fire to be a good Ryder Cup captain. That's what he said. He couldn't put the time into it. And then the only other person that's had a great run at that age is David Duval. And I don't know why they don't ask David Duval. It's kind of interesting that they haven't asked David Duval or Stuart Sink, I guess, for that matter as well. But now you just start to run down the list. You're like, well, who's next in line? And I think Snedeker could have been picked as somebody, but the difference is that Brandt doesn't have any major championship victories. So Brandt's going to be the President's Cup captain next year. And maybe if that goes great, that could land him because he has a great resume as well. But I don't think that it matters. I think at the end of the day, the guys on that level, they're just like, put us out there. It's just going to come down to the only places that these guys can make a big dent in their ball striking is second shots in the par fives and shots on par threes that are over 200 yards. Other than that, they're about the same. So everything turns into a putting contest because there's, on this golf course, 2 par fives. So there's only 2 times a bomber can affect it. And there's 4 par threes, and those are hard holes. So you'll see some swings, so to speak, in a match because some team is hitting their iron shots closer. But a lot of the time, it's the putting. And America's, without only a handful of times, has America putted good in these events in the last 30 years.
Virgil, appreciate you joining us here. I'm going to kind of build on that question or that finish by you. If we're talking around the water cooler next week about America reclaiming the Ryder Cup, Team USA doing it, the U.S. captains with Keegan Bradley getting it done, who's a player specifically that you have in mind that helped them get over the edge? And then a second part to that question, if Europe is going to retain the Ryder Cup, a player that helped them go over the top.
I believe that the player who's going to make the biggest impact for America is going to be Bryson DeChambeau, because he's like the new version of Payne Stewart. He's the most patriotic. He's the most boisterous. He's intaking it at a level that reminds us of Payne Stewart. I certainly think that Scotty Scheffler is the best player, and I think that there is a possibility that there are some names that we're going to see that could really stamp their face in golf. JJ Spawn comes to mind. I think that he's such a great ball striker, and he's improved his putting significantly, that I think those 2 guys are going to play a big role. But I really think that DeChambeau is going to be the answer for Europe. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Europe winning, Rory is the team captain. Rory's the heartbeat of the European team. But last time it was Ludwig and Victor Hovland that made huge impacts. Obviously, Rory played great, but it was Victor Hovland, first hole, chip in, followed by another really close iron shot, another 2 up. And it was basically, they just started the steamroll from the go. And I expect it to be a very similar group, like those young guys. That Højgaard guy can absolutely play too. I think Rory's going to be the anchor, and I think he and Fleetwood are going to do really well in the team matches. But I had a feeling that if Oberg and or Hovland take down a DeChambeau match, that could be a swing movement right there. But I think it's DeChambeau and a combination of Oberg and Hovland.
Virgil, you talked about that pairing of Ludwig Oberg and Victor Hovland from 2023. Obviously, they put an absolute beating on Brooks Koepka and Scotty Scheffler. And, we've all seen the video. Scotty Scheffler was, crying after that match. But do you think that there's, with the United States team having 4 newcomers, obviously, like we've mentioned, the European team has a lot more experience. Do you think there's anybody, particularly from the U.S. side, but for either squad, that we could potentially see play in all 5 matches?
Oh, I think there's no question Scheffler's going to play in all 5. DeChambeau is going to play in all 5. And then after that, I'm not sure that anybody's going to play 5. But I guarantee you those 2 guys are going to play all 5. And you can go ahead and write it down. Rory's playing all 5. And more than likely, Tommy Fleetwood's playing all 5. The Europeans are more likely to stick with, like, their guns. Like, there's no way that Oberg and Hovland aren't playing in all 5. Because they're young. Both are playing pretty good right now. They're going to get maxed out because they got to save Justin Rose. They can't put that body out there 5 times. And they can't put Shane Lowry out there 5 times. So it's just one of those things where they're putting Rory out there. He's the face. He's the needle mover for the European squad and their best player. But I expect it to be the other. I think there's going to be more people play 5 in Europe than there will be in America.
And then over the last couple of Ryder Cups, we kind of got used to, the same couple pairings being together. Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, and then whoever Ricky Fowler was playing with that particular week. But obviously no Jordan Spieth, no Ricky Fowler this year. And with 4 newcomers, what do you think some ideal pairings look like for the American team on Friday and Saturday?
I do know that Scheffler and Henley get along quite well. Scheffler and Bryson DeChambeau had quite a nice run at Whistling Straits. I think that you'll probably see those 2 guys when they're playing the 4-ball, but you probably won't see them in the alternate shot foursomes match. I think we're going to definitely see Fleetwood McIlroy. We're going to see Oberg and Hovland. We're going to see Cantlay and Spawn. I wouldn't be shocked to see that. But I don't really see – I think that they have to be a little bit mindful when it's the foursome because of the golf ball. It's really – there are some balls that are really different. And I just think that they always try to keep the Titleist players playing with Titleist players and the Callaway players playing with Callaway players and all the other brands, because that is probably the most sensitive piece of the equipment for all the players is the golf ball. And even though it doesn't make that much of a difference in like what the ball does, it really disturbs the high-end feels that these players have. It's probably the most sensitive piece of their equipment.
And obviously the Americans have somewhat of an advantage with it being in the U.S. this year, but honestly, I'm not sure anybody has an advantage at Bethpage Black. That's one of the courses that is always regarded as one of the toughest, not only in the country, but in the world. And just for the people that don't know, how tough is that course and what kind of problems does it pose?
Well, they actually have the rough cut down. It's been notorious for the rough. But what it is, one of the things that makes the Ryder Cups now so much more difficult to win in foreign soil is data and statistics, right? So now they know what all the tour players do. They have all this information, right? So now they can say, what's our entire team's scoring average on left pins, right pins, left rough, right rough. Oh, so we can make, and then what's the other team? What are they like? What are they good at? And then do everything you can to take that away. And that's what makes it so hard, is like it all really started when they went to Paris and they basically set that golf course up to make sure that America couldn't win. And it was a disaster. America got destroyed. Well, then in Hazeltine, the next one, America went full blown into understanding the analytics and data, and they set that golf course up for their players and they whipped them pretty good. And it vice versa, it goes right back. And now they did that in Italy. So now they're just basically setting the golf course up for their players and also setting it up difficult to go against the best players or the most important players. What can they do to make it difficult? The more that they can take the driver out of Rory's hands, the better they are. The more difficult they can make it around the green, the better it is for America. And also, one of the things that they did at Hazeltine, which I would be interested to see if they do this time, is that on the last day when it was all singles matches, all 18 flags were in the middle of the green. What does that tell you? That America's team makes more birdies. They're more aggressive with their iron play, and that set it up for a super low scoring event. And American players are more comfortable with that, and they ran away with it in the singles. So it's all data driven, and the setup is based off the data. I think that's going to be the most fascinating thing, because the golf course is super hard. It's long, it's lush, it's going to be magnificent. The leaves are going to be changing colors. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And there's no easy hole. There's no easy hole. It always produces a great champion, and I expect it to be an absolutely perfect place to host a Ryder Cup.
And one last thing before we get you out of here, there's been, those murmurs around Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau over the last couple of years. Obviously they went toe to toe at the 2024 U.S. Open. Bryson DeChambeau mentioned a couple of days ago that if he's paired with Rory, he's going to be chirping in his ear, and Rory kind of had a little clap back at that. But obviously the pairings haven't been released yet, and the Ryder Cup does not need the Ryder Cup in itself is enough reason for players to get excited. But do you think that if we did see that Rory McIlroy versus Bryson DeChambeau pairing, that would kind of add an extra element to this Ryder Cup, an extra level of excitement?
Either he or Scheffler. But either one of those two would be an epic show. And I think more people want to see Scotty Scheffler and Rory because they're by far so much the top two players in the world. But DeChambeau, once again, DeChambeau's like the Arnold Palmer. He's the Payne Stewart. He's the Captain Charisma. And either one's going to be, you can bet that one of those two is playing Rory. And I don't really think it makes much of a difference because that's going to be high voltage right there. That'll be awesome to watch.
That's Virgil Herring talking with us here on Main Street Sports Today. He's the two-time Tennessee PGA Teacher of the Year. Virgil, we appreciate you hopping on to talk a little Ryder Cup with us, and we'll definitely talk to you down the road.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That was Virgil Herring joining us on Main Street Sports Today. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll get into our final segment. We'll get into Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Make sure to stick with us.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it. But it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
Final segment on a Wednesday. Welcome back to Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm David Wilson. I'm back, hopefully, for now, for good, for the rest of the show. It's Calvin White. We're both repping the A here on a Wednesday here in the Mid-State. I'm glad you're joining us here on a Wild and Wacky Wednesday. It's that time of the day. It's our favorite segment of the show. I know Calvin just enjoyed our talk with Virgil Herring ahead of the Ryder Cup this weekend. Calvin, where can the viewers watch that on TV this weekend?
I believe it's
just
on
put you on the spot. I apologize.
I believe it's on NBC.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on NBC. NBC along with the USA Network and Peacock.
There you go. That's where you can find the Ryder Cup. Good stuff from Calvin and Virgil right there. It's time to close the show with our favorite segment. It's Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Calvin has devised and schemed and plotted and found the wildest and wacky stories from across the globe. And I'm going to pass the baton once again to him right now as he closes the show.
Yeah, slim pickings on this week's Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Not the wackiest stories we'll find, but stuff that will make for good conversation nonetheless. But our first Wild and Wacky story, the headline reads, 2,358 people play catch to break the world record in New Jersey. The Yogi Berra Museum and Learning Center in New Jersey gathered 2,358 people to play catch and break a Guinness World Record. It broke the world record for the largest game of catch. All these people split off into pairs to throw baseballs back and forth, which it makes a lot more sense than what I thought this would have been. Is just 2,000 people throwing one ball around. But I love a good game of catch. Grew up, obviously played baseball all all through childhood. Always enjoyed a good catch with Dad in the yard. And this looks a lot more fun than what I thought it was. Everybody just splitting off into pairs and playing a little toss.
There is nothing more American in my eye than playing catch with dad in the backyard. I mean, that is childhood 101. That's a lot of people on one baseball field. Obviously, it is a professional size field, I assume, up in the Northeast. That's a very short game of catch. You can't go very far without bumping into your neighbor or your partner. It looks like they were definitely efficient with their spacing, though. You got people going, I guess the ways of the field, going sideways per se, towards the outfield fence. They stretched out. That's pretty good. That's cool. That would be something I've mentioned on several of these when you bring up these world records. There'll be some that I would do, like this for sure. Anytime you get me with catch, and I can try to relive the glory days of what little athleticism I have left in my body, I will try to do it. There are world records like last week where it was the guy, on fire with per se, or the guy with the motorcycle handle in his mouth. Those are things I would not do. But playing catch, there's nothing more American than that. So anytime I can whip out, I have my gloves really across from behind the computer screen. I have my outfield glove on the bottom, infield glove on top. So they're still here. So if Calvin, you want to grab a game of catch the next time I see you, we can make that happen.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they were able to spread that far apart, but
Nope, this was about 5 feet.
Yeah, but
maybe less than that, more than that.
It still gives you some type of feeling to feel that ball hit the middle of the mitt.
Now, so here's the thing: when you put this in the Guinness World Record book, there's no way you can put 2,000 names in the book. I guess you just put location, date, maybe time, event, but I need proof that I was in the event. So I would want my name in the book.
I guess you better take plenty of pictures.
I guess
but,
so.
Mark, I see already in the green room has our picture pulled up for this next wild and wacky story. Steel Man of India, that's this man's nickname. He held onto these 575-pound pillars for 1 minute. He's a bodybuilder. This broke the world record. The world record is called the heaviest weight holding Hercules pillars. This man's name is Vispi Karate. He's broken 17 world records in the past. He had to hold the pillars for a full minute, and he exceeded that time by 7 seconds. He attempted this feat in India, but he doesn't. He looks pretty strong. He doesn't look like holding 575 pounds strong. So kudos to that guy.
Yeah, you mentioned Hercules. Side note, that movie was on last night as I left to go to the soccer match on Freeform. So maybe it was meant to be that you would throw this in the wild and wacky segment. That dude is yoked. I mean, like the upper body. I mean, goodness. So I wish I had that working for me. That's a lot of weight, especially in just the arm stretched out. All those muscles and tendons you're stretching. Kudos to him. Do I enjoy a good lift? Absolutely. I'll tear it up at the YMCA on the bench and the legs. But 500 pounds is a bunch. So a hat tip to him, and more importantly, just getting people like that to come watch you in a crowd. That's pretty cool. I would hate to disappoint, but it looks like he did.
Yeah, and this story says each of those pillars weighed 575 pounds.
So this is over 1,000 total.
Yeah, he's holding up over 1,000 pounds right there.
So I guess I'm looking at the picture. I guess they start them vertically and they like push them, I guess, and he has to hold on to them. I guess I'm trying to imagine how it went. Obviously, they have holds, I guess, in the bottom. I'm just trying to guess how they started and how he grabbed it to hold it. So this is just me looking on the fly.
I don't know, but either way, that's extremely
It's a lot of
impressive.
weight that I would have dropped. I mean, I couldn't do that with two hands on one of them, let alone one on each.
Yeah. Our third wild and wacky story. We haven't had one of these in a while. This headline reads: Massachusetts lottery winner collects $1 million 1 week after he won $10,000. A Connecticut man won a $1 million prize from a Massachusetts state lottery ticket just 1 week after winning $10,000 from a ticket he bought from the same store. I wish I was as lucky as this guy.
I know. I mean, do you play? Will
I
you
do
play
not.
when it gets big? Okay.
I do not.
Well, if it got up to like a billion, and I think it has more recently done that, I think you have to just for luck's sakes, buy maybe a couple tickets and just test your hand. That's lucky though. I mean, the odds of winning are obviously very, very slim. To get the 10,000 is great, but to get the million is even better. So maybe I need to rub this person's head and transfer some good juju because Lord knows my bank account is struggling. Hey, if you want to give the 10,000 to me and you keep the million, that's fine with me too. But wow, that's crazy. Tested his luck twice or her luck twice at the same store and got it done. So the real question is don't you have to go back for a third?
I would think so, but there's no
You got to
chance
test it till
of.
the luck runs dry.
Yeah, if you won $10,000, then you won $1 million. If you hit a third time, who knows how much you would win? He says his
Yeah,
prize.
just
He says
take it all.
yeah. He says his prize money will go toward buying a new house and making investments. Obviously, I don't have to
Pay
worry
off some
about.
debt. Pay off
Yeah,
some debt.
yeah. Mark Mark already gave us a sneak preview of our fourth wild and wacky story. We just got done talking to Virgil Herring about the Ryder Cup. We're gonna go in a little bit of an opposite direction here. This is the opposite of the Ryder Cup. An Ohio nun celebrates her 105th birthday with a round of golf. Sister Renee
Calvin,
Parman and her cohorts from Humility of Mary visited the Knoll Run Golf Course in Lowville on Friday, 2 days before her 105th birthday, to engage in one of her favorite activities, golf.
I feel like this is a sister, sister,
Yeah.
straight out of your heart. I mean, this is Calvin. If he's turning 105, he is on the golf course somewhere in Wilson County playing golf. This is Calvin. So this is out of your heart. So I knew this was something that you were dying to pick. She should have invited Sister Jean, who you elaborated on in the grab bag, who turned 106 this year
Extensively.
since retired. What I was going to elaborate on before, obviously, I was frozen. My apologies for that. Is that she was 106 and still working. I'm stopping working hopefully at the retirement age of 65 or whatever it is, not 106. At that point, I might just tell the Lord to take me. But she should have invited Sister Jean to take the round of golf with her. And I'm impressed that she was even able to hit the ball as far. I mean, goodness, a 105. I'm going to just tip the hat to her. Absolutely. Phenomenal stuff.
I can't even hit the ball at 23. Says she began working to become a nun at the age of 18, but it wasn't until her 40s that some of her fellow sisters introduced her to golf. They said, hit the ball. That was my only instruction that I ever received, she said. She now plays golf every week and has been instructing her younger colleagues on how to play the game. So she's not only playing, she's 105 and teaching other people how to play.
She could probably teach me how to play. The problem is I shank everything. It goes to the right. I will be your world's best putter if I could ever get it to the hole. If I could get it on the green near the pin, I would be good. But the problem is getting there for me. Baseball and golf didn't correlate for me.
Yeah, this story doesn't say what her skill level is, but it says at the bottom that she's also legally blind.
Goodness.
So the game's hard enough when you can see perfectly. She's out there.
Let alone when you can't see.
She's out there swinging the sticks when she can't even see the ball.
She's having the best of times.
Yeah, we're going to a corn maze up in Detroit for our next story, if I can get it to load.
This goes hard.
A Michigan corn maze recreates Amon-Ra St. Brown's viral headstand. A Michigan farm unveiled a 5-acre corn maze depicting Detroit Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown performing his viral headstand touchdown celebration at Long Family Orchard and Farm in Commerce Township. Posted a video to social media showing the corn maze, which captures a moment from last year's Lions game. against the Green Bay Packers. Corn mazes are probably hard enough to find your way out of. I can't imagine how hard that thing is to get out of.
Yeah, having to cut that is incredible. That takes some artistic skill. He has to go to that. I mean, he has to go. That if somebody did that of me, that would be so dang cool. So hopefully Amon Ra, who's known to celebrate. I saw some of his dances on Monday night against the Ravens and the Lions win. A little shimmy here, a little shimmy there. Um, he likes to celebrate a little bit. The Lions having a good time for obvious reasons. They're one of the best teams in football last year, off to a 2-1 start this year. So that's pretty cool, though. And I'll say this: there's no better fan base than up in Detroit. I mean, you want to talk about people that are diehard and that'll roll with you. Some of the best environments we saw in the NFL last year were up in Detroit. So the Michigan natives, yeah, look at that. Pretty cool. Now, it happened against my pack, which is not good. But
Yeah.
Detroit fans are great.
Yeah, and we're going to sneak our last wild and wacky story in here to round out the show. We didn't get to this one last week. Connecticut City breaks record for world's largest pizza party. Another one of those food ones that we would love to be included in. A Connecticut City dished out more than 9,000 slices of savory pie to break the Guinness World Record for the largest pizza party. The Taste of New Haven, which organizes multiple local events and tours, held the record attempt at the New Haven Green. Each participant was served 2 slices of pizza and was required by Guinness World Records rules to finish them in a set amount of time. The party ended up with an official total of 4,525 participants, breaking the previous record of 3,357. I love a good pizza party. I'm a fan of a good pizza party.
I remember when we were kids. Granted, I'm just a few years older than you. It feels like when we had those school pizza parties that the slice of pizza was like very, very narrow. Like they wouldn't ever give you the big piece. They'd give you that little slim piece, and you'd always walk away a little bit more hungry. Some of these pieces look pretty full. So I guess that's a lot of pizza. That's a lot of dough. But I wish here in Tennessee we would get on this about having some parties and getting us involved. But really cool for all involved.
Yeah, this is. It seems like every week we have one of these food world records that we always talk about how we'd like to be a part of that. We had I believe it was rice last week, and then a couple of weeks ago we had I think it was tacos. I don't know what it is about people and these giant food world records, but it always seems like a lot of these go toward a good cause. But it seems like this one was just, organizing a big old pizza party and inviting everybody to come out and down 2 pieces of pie for this world record.
Say everybody and then some. Hat tip to you, Calvin, for doing it. Yet again, kudos for researching the web and finding our wild and wacky stories for this segment. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another show here on a Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Tomorrow, it'll be Throwback Thursday. I'll be joined by our colleague and good friend Maurice Patton as we round up the week and get ready for the weekend. Calvin, where are you going Friday night for those looking for your football coverage?
I will be at Springfield Pearl Cone.
There is no better matchup in my mind on the docket this week than that one. 2 really good programs. Pearl Cone, I believe 1-4 on the season. The record doesn't tell the tape. Springfield undefeated, one of the top teams in their classification as well. Should be a good one. Tony Bernetti, Dustin Wilson. Should I say more? I'll be back tomorrow. See you guys then. Have a good rest of your Wednesday afternoon.